The darkness of space was broken by massive alien ships. They floated like giant metal cities, their hulls black as the void between stars. Purple lights ran along their sides in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at. These were the warships of the Velthani Empire, and they had come to destroy another world. Captain Deho pressed his face against the thick glass window of his ship's bridge. The human frigate Indomitable was tiny compared to the alien dreadnoughts below. On the planet's surface, he could see orange fires spreading across the continents. The Karathi people had lived in peace for thousands of years. They grew food, made art, and raised their children under 2 purple suns. Now their cities were burning, Captain. "We're getting their radio signals," said Communications Officer Sora. She was young, maybe 24, with short black hair that she kept tucked behind her ears when she was nervous. Her fingers moved fast across the control panels trying to decode the alien transmissions. "Put it on the main screen," Deho ordered. The bridge's largest display flickered and showed an alien figure. He was tall and thin, wearing robes that seemed to move by themselves. His skin was pale blue, almost white, and his eyes were completely black with no pupils. 2 small horns grew from his forehead. This was Hegemon Vexathara, one of the most powerful leaders in the Velthani Empire. "People of this worthless world." The alien's voice was smooth but cold, like ice forming over deep water. "I am your new god. You will serve the great Velthani Empire or you will burn. We give you 1 standard hour to bring us your leaders and prepare your people for transport to our labor worlds." Deho felt his hands tighten into fists. The Karathi were farmers and artists. Their biggest weapons were tools for cutting grain. They had maybe 50 small cities on the whole planet, with populations that never grew above 1 million people. They couldn't fight warships that could melt continents. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy buildup in their lead ship," called Tactical Officer Kwanho from his station. He was an older man, maybe 45, with gray starting to show in his black hair. "Looks like they're charging their main cannon." "But they said 1 hour," Deho said, though he already knew the truth. Sora looked up from her controls, her young face pale. "I don't think they ever planned to wait, Captain." The first energy beam came down like a purple lightning bolt from the sky. It hit the largest Karathi city and turned everything in a circle 50 kilometers wide into melted glass. The second beam struck their capital, where the government buildings had stood for 800 years. The third beam hit their biggest spaceport, where civilian ships had been trying to escape. The massive alien ship called Divine Wrath moved slowly across the planet, taking time with each shot. Purple beams rained down like the wrath of angry gods, turning forests into ash and oceans into steam. "Those monsters," whispered Kwanho, watching cities die on his tactical display. "They're enjoying this." Deho had spent 15 years in space with the Solar Defense Force. He had fought pirates who killed for money, smugglers who sold weapons to terrorists, and raiders who attacked colonies for slaves. But this was different. This was murder for entertainment. The aliens were laughing as they destroyed an entire civilization. "Sora, record everything," he said. "Send it back to Earth on the emergency channel." "Yes, sir. But if I transmit, they might detect our ship." "Do it anyway. Earth needs to see this." The transmission lasted 4 minutes. Sora managed to capture the orbital bombardment, the alien leader's cruel laughter, and the final desperate messages from the dying world below. When she finished, she looked up at her captain with tears in her eyes. "It's sent, sir. Earth Command will receive it in 6 days." "Good." Deho turned to his weapons officer, Lieutenant Hyejin. She was a stern woman in her 30s with steady hands and cold eyes that had seen too much war. "Charge all plasma cannons. Target their smallest escort ship." "Captain?" Hyejin looked confused. "We can't win against that fleet. They have 6 heavy cruisers and that dreadnought. We're just 1 frigate. I know we can't win, but we can't just watch either." The Indomitable dropped out of stealth mode and fired everything it had. Blue plasma bolts streaked across space and hit the Velthani escort ship's energy shields. The bolts scattered like water hitting a rock. The return fire was immediate and terrible. Purple energy beams lashed out from 3 different alien ships. The Indomitable shook like a toy in a hurricane as the beams hammered against its shields. "Shields down to 30%, Kwanho reported, his voice tight with stress. "Hull damage on decks 4 and 5. We've lost 2 plasma cannons." "Evasive maneuvers," Deho ordered, but he knew it was too late. More shots followed them as they tried to turn away. The ship bucked and rolled as systems failed throughout its hull. "Captain, they're transmitting to us," Sora said. Put it on screen. Hegemon Vexithara appeared again, but now he was smiling. It was not a pleasant expression on his alien face. Ah, the little human ship. How amusing that you actually thought you could challenge God. He laughed, a sound like glass breaking in a winter storm. Your species will make interesting slaves when we come for you. Tell your leaders that Hegemon Vexithara has marked humanity for conquest. We will visit your pathetic little world very soon. Go to hell, Deho said through gritted teeth. The alien's smile grew wider, showing teeth that were too sharp and too white. Hell? We are far beyond such primitive ideas, little mortal. We are the chosen of the void, masters of 1,000 worlds and destroyers of 10,000 species. Your Earth will burn just like this worthless rock, but first we will make you suffer for your defiance. Another blast rocked the Indomitable. Emergency lights flashed red as power failed across multiple decks. Alarms screamed warnings that everyone already knew. They were dying. Emergency jump, Deho commanded. Get us out of here now. The ship's jump drive began its charging sequence with painful slowness. More purple beams lashed out from the alien fleet. Systems exploded around them. The bridge filled with smoke as control panels overloaded. Just as their shields collapsed completely, space twisted around them and they vanished into hyperspace. Hours later, they drifted in the empty darkness between star systems. Half their ship was dead, and 12 crew members were in the medical bay with serious injuries. But they were alive. Deho sat in his captain's chair and stared at the damage report scrolling across his screen. They had barely scratched the alien ships. The enemy had treated them like an annoying bug, nothing more. Captain, Sora said quietly from her station, I've been monitoring long-range communications. The Velthani have attacked 4 more systems in the past week. Same pattern every time. No negotiations, no warnings, no mercy. How many people are dead? Billions, sir. Maybe tens of billions. Deho closed his eyes and tried not to think about all those worlds burning. In all his years fighting in space, he had never felt so small and helpless. The Velthani moved through the galaxy like a plague of locusts, consuming everything in their path. They called themselves gods, and maybe they were right. What could mere mortals do against beings with such terrible power? Sir, Quan Ho spoke up from his tactical station. I've been studying the recordings of their ships. Their technology is definitely more advanced than ours, but it's also old. Like they haven't changed their ship designs in hundreds of years. What do you mean? Their tactics, their formations, even their weapons. Everything follows the same rigid patterns. It's like they've been winning for so long that they've forgotten how to adapt to new threats. Lieutenant Hyojin nodded from her weapons console. I noticed that too. When we attacked, they responded exactly the same way they probably respond to every enemy. No creativity, no new ideas. Deho felt a tiny spark of hope in his chest. Arrogance, sir? They're arrogant. They think they know everything. Because they've been conquering worlds for thousands of years. They don't see us as a real threat, so they don't bother to study us properly. Sora looked up from her communications panel. But does that really matter? They're still strong enough to destroy entire solar systems. Maybe it does matter. Arrogance is a weakness, even for gods. And if there's one thing humans have always been good at, it's finding our enemies' weaknesses and using them. The captain stood up slowly and walked to the main viewing window. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness, Earth was preparing for the worst war in human history. The aliens would come with their superior ships and their godlike arrogance. They would expect humanity to kneel and beg for mercy. They were going to be very surprised. Set course for home, Deho ordered. Maximum speed. Yes, sir. Estimated travel time to Earth is 18 days. 18 days to warn his people. 18 days for Earth to prepare for war against self-proclaimed gods. It wasn't much time, but maybe it would be enough. The Velthani called themselves divine, but Deho had seen them bleed today. Their ship shields had flickered under human weapons, even if only for a moment. If gods could bleed, then gods could die. And humans had been killing their enemies for 50,000 years. War Commander Drakmor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory, watching 8 of the Empire's most powerful warships move through space in perfect formation. Each vessel was over 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could destroy moons. Their shields had never been broken by any enemy in the galaxy. Fleet status report, he commanded his tactical officer. All ships report full combat readiness, War Commander, came the reply. The human vessel was last detected near the Kepler 442 system, hunting our patrol ships. Excellent. We will trap it there and end this embarrassment to the Empire once and for all. Drakmor had been fighting wars for the Veltani Empire for over 400 years. He had personally conquered 63 worlds and destroyed more enemy fleets than he could count. No primitive species had ever challenged Veltani power and lived to tell about it. These humans would learn to fear their gods. In the asteroid field around Kepler 442, the Prometheus drifted silently among rocks the size of cities. Commander Hayrin wore her neural interface headset. Her mind connected to every sensor and system on the ship. Through the quantum link, she could feel the approaching Veltani fleet like thunder before a storm. 8 heavy cruisers approaching, she reported to her crew. They're moving in standard battle formation with maximum shields and all weapons charged. That's a lot of firepower coming our way, Dongmin said from his tactical station. His voice was calm, but she could see sweat on his forehead. More firepower than we've ever faced before, Mi-young agreed from her weapons console. Even with our advantages, fighting 8 ships at once is not good odds. Hayrin smiled through the neural connection. The ship's artificial intelligence shared her confidence, feeding tactical data directly into her human brain. Who said we're going to fight them directly? The asteroid field around them stretched across millions of kilometers of space. Rocks as big as mountains tumbled slowly through the darkness, creating a maze of metal and stone that would crush any normal ship. Most captains avoided such dangerous areas because navigation was too risky. But the Prometheus was far from normal. Enemy fleet entering the outer system, Dongmin reported, watching his long-range sensors. Still maintaining tight formation, moving slowly and carefully. Good, Hayrin said. Careful enemies think too much instead of acting quickly. Through the ship's advanced sensors, she watched the Veltani fleet approach the asteroid field like cautious predators. Their formation was mathematically perfect, designed to provide maximum firepower coverage in every direction. Against any conventional enemy, it would have been unbeatable. War Commander Drakmor studied his tactical displays with growing frustration. The asteroids created thousands of hiding places where an enemy ship could wait in ambush. Deploy sensor probes throughout the field, he ordered. I want every piece of rock larger than a shuttle scanned completely. Yes. War Commander. The probes spread out like a metal net, their powerful sensors searching through the asteroid maze for any sign of the human ship. For 2 hours they searched, finding nothing but empty space and floating rocks. Perhaps the human vessel has already escaped, suggested his second-in-command. No, Drakmor said firmly, his pale blue skin darkening with anger. It is here somewhere watching us. I can feel it, he was completely right. The Prometheus hung motionless in the shadow of an asteroid larger than most planets. Its adaptive hull had changed to match the rock's composition exactly, making the ship invisible to normal sensors. Through her neural link, Hayrin watched the enemy probes pass within a few hundred meters without detecting them. Maintain complete sensor silence, she whispered to her crew. Let them come deeper into the field. The Veltani fleet moved carefully into the asteroid maze, their perfect formation spreading slightly to avoid the largest rocks. It was exactly what Hayrin had been waiting for. Mi-young, she said softly, prepare a full spread of plasma torpedoes. Target the ship at the back of their formation when I give the command. Torpedoes loaded and ready, the weapons officer replied, her steady hands moving over her controls. Dongmin, plot our escape route through the densest part of the asteroid field. Somewhere their big ships can't follow us. Escape route calculated and ready to execute. Hayrin waited until the Veltani fleet was completely inside the asteroid field. Their formation stretched across thousands of kilometers. The enemy ships moved slowly and carefully, trying to avoid collisions with the floating rocks. Then she struck without warning. The Prometheus appeared behind the rearmost Veltani cruiser and fired every torpedo it carried. The alien ship's shields flared bright purple as they absorbed the first impacts, then collapsed completely under the overwhelming barrage. Explosions ripped through the cruiser's hull as atmosphere vented into space in great white clouds. Before the other enemy ships could turn their weapons around, the Prometheus vanished again, quantum jumping deeper into the asteroid field where the larger alien vessels couldn't follow. Contact, shouted Drakmor's tactical officer. The divine punishment is under heavy attack. All ships return fire immediately. Converge on that position. But there was nothing left to shoot at. The human ship had disappeared like a ghost, leaving only empty space and floating debris. War Commander, came a desperate voice over the communication system. "This is Captain Vorth of the Divine Punishment. We have massive hull breaches on 12 decks. Main power systems are failing completely. Can you maintain formation and continue fighting?" "Negative, sir. We're losing life support and engine power. Request immediate evacuation assistance." Drakmor felt real worry for the first time in centuries of warfare. The human ship had appeared from nowhere, crippled one of his most powerful vessels, and vanished again without a trace. His advanced sensors showed no indication of where it had gone or where it might attack next. "All ships, reduce speed and form defensive positions around the Divine Punishment," he ordered. It was the correct military decision, but it was also exactly what Hayrin had hoped he would do. With the enemy fleet bunched together around their damaged ship, they made a perfect target for her next attack. The Prometheus materialized directly above the Velthani formation and used its tractor beams to grab a massive asteroid. The ship accelerated the rock to tremendous speed and hurled it directly at the cruiser called Righteous Fury. The impact crushed the alien vessel's forward section like an empty can and sent it spinning helplessly out of control. "2 ships down," Mi Young reported with cold satisfaction. "Keep moving," Hayrin ordered through gritted teeth. The neural interface was putting enormous stress on her human brain. "Don't give them time to adapt to our tactics." For the next 3 hours, the battle continued in the same deadly pattern. The Prometheus would appear without warning, strike with devastating effect, and disappear before the Velthani could respond. Sometimes it used weapons, sometimes asteroids. Sometimes it simply rammed enemy ships with quantum-accelerated debris, moving at incredible speeds. One by one, the mighty Velthani cruisers were destroyed or disabled. Their perfect military formation became a scattered mess of burning wreckage and panicked survivors. War Commander Drakmor watched his fleet die with growing horror and disbelief. Only 3 of his 8 ships were still capable of fighting, and all of them were damaged. His crews reported sensor contacts everywhere and nowhere, phantom readings that appeared and vanished faster than anyone could target them. "War Commander," his communications officer called out with fear in his voice, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through the main speakers." Commander Hayrin's voice filled the bridge, calm and confident despite the exhaustion that was killing her. "Velthani fleet, this is the UES Prometheus. Your false gods have abandoned you here to die. Surrender immediately and we will allow your surviving crews to escape in life pods." Drakmor's pale skin flushed dark blue with rage and humiliation. "Never. We are the chosen children of the void. We do not surrender to primitive animals. Then you will die like the false gods you serve." The final attack came from all directions at once. The Prometheus used its quantum drives to create multiple sensor images of itself, making it appear that several human ships were attacking simultaneously. The remaining Velthani vessels fired wildly in all directions, their energy beams hitting nothing but empty space and floating asteroids. The real Prometheus appeared directly underneath Drakmor's flagship and fired its main plasma array straight up through the ship's bottom hull. The energy beam punched through 20 decks of alien metal before exploding out the top of the vessel in a fountain of purple fire. War Commander Drakmor had just enough time to send one final message before his ship's nuclear reactor went into critical overload. "All Velthani forces. Human ship fights like demons from the depths of space. How can mere mortals possess such terrible power? How can they move like gods while we—" The explosion cut off his words forever, lighting up the entire asteroid field like a new star. The battle was over. 8 of the Empire's finest warships had been destroyed by a single human vessel. The few surviving crew members who escaped in life pods would carry news of this impossible defeat back to their leaders. The human colony of New Sol was nothing but burning ruins when the Prometheus arrived. What had once been home to 60,000 people was now a crater of melted metal and glass that still glowed red from the heat. The farms that had fed 3-star systems were ash. The schools where children had learned to read were gone. Even the small cemetery where 5 generations of colonists had been buried was destroyed. Commander Hayrin felt the ship's sensors like they were her own eyes. Through the neural link, she could see everything within 2 million kilometers in perfect detail. 3 Velthani warships floated in orbit above the dead colony. Their crews were probably celebrating another easy victory against defenseless humans. "Enemy fleet composition," she said out loud so her crew could hear, even though she already knew every detail through her connection to the ship's computers. 2 heavy cruisers and 1 escort destroyer, Dongmin reported from his tactical station. His young face was pale as he studied the sensor readings. Standard Velthani attack formation. They're not even trying to hide. All weapons charged and ready, Mi-young added from the weapons control station. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were hard with anger. Plasma arrays are operating within normal parameters. Heirin used the quantum drives to move the Prometheus closer to the enemy ships. The advanced engines let them appear and disappear around the edges of the star system without being detected. This would be their first real combat test against Velthani forces. Everything they had done before was just computer simulations. Attack pattern Delta, she ordered. We hit the destroyer first. It's the smallest and weakest target. The Prometheus flickered into existence directly behind the Velthani escort ship. The alien vessel never saw them coming. Mi-young fired every plasma cannon they had in one concentrated burst. The energy bolts punched through the destroyer's rear shields like they were made of paper and tore the ship apart from the inside. Purple fire bloomed across space as the alien vessel exploded, but something went terribly wrong with their own ship. The plasma arrays overloaded from the massive energy discharge. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge as critical systems failed throughout the Prometheus. What happened? Heirin demanded. She could feel the damage through the neural link like physical pain in her own body. The plasma conduits couldn't handle that much power, Mi-young reported, her fingers flying over her control panels. Half our weapons are completely fried. I might be able to give you 2 more shots before everything shuts down permanently. The 2 surviving Velthani cruisers were already turning toward them. Their massive gun turrets moved with mechanical precision as they locked onto the human ship. Each alien vessel was over 3 kilometers long and built like a flying fortress. Their weapons could destroy planets. Evasive maneuvers, Heirin shouted. The Prometheus vanished just as purple energy beams sliced through the space where it had been. The quantum drives worked perfectly, but without working weapons they were just running away from a fight they couldn't win. Jump us out of here, Heirin ordered, hating every word. Her first real battle against the aliens. And she was retreating. Aye, Captain, Dongmin replied, his hands dancing over the navigation controls. They reappeared 4 star systems away, drifting in empty space near a field of asteroids. The Prometheus was alive but badly wounded. Half their weapon systems were completely dead, and the neural interface was giving Heirin a headache that felt like someone driving nails into her skull. Damage report, she said, pulling off the neural interface headset. Her hands were shaking from the stress of the failed battle. Dr. Yoon-sik, who had been monitoring her brain patterns from his medical station, looked worried. The neural interface is working correctly, but the feedback from the weapons overload nearly destroyed your mind. We need to completely recalibrate the entire system. Chief Engineer Jiwoo's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. I can fix the plasma arrays, but it's going to take at least a week. The power coupling system was never designed to handle this kind of energy load. Mi-young slammed her fist down on her control console hard enough to crack the screen. We had them. 1 shot and that destroyer was space dust. But then our own weapons nearly killed us. It's not your fault, Heirin said firmly. We're trying to use experimental weapons that have never been tested in real combat. Of course, there are going to be problems we didn't expect. For the next 10 days, they worked without stopping to repair their ship and fix the problems they had discovered. Jiwoo completely redesigned the plasma conduits to handle much higher energy levels. Dr. Yoon-sik modified the neural interface to filter out the dangerous feedback from weapon discharges. Mi-young created new targeting programs that would use their firepower more efficiently without overloading their systems. But the hardest part was learning to think differently about combat. We can't fight like a normal warship, Heirin realized during one of their planning meetings in the ship's small conference room. We keep trying to use traditional human tactics with revolutionary alien technology. What do you mean? Dongmin asked, looking up from the tactical reports he had been studying. Look at what we can do. We can appear anywhere instantly with no warning. Our weapons can punch through any kind of shield. Our sensors can track dozens of targets at the same time. But we're still thinking like the old human fleet. Mi-young nodded slowly as she began to understand. You're right. We attacked that destroyer head-on, like any normal ship would do. But we don't have to fight fair anymore. Exactly. We're not a battleship that has to stand and trade shots with the enemy. We're a hunter, a predator. They spent the next several days creating completely new ways to fight. Instead of direct attacks, they would use hit-and-run tactics. Instead of standing battles, they would strike from impossible angles and disappear before the enemy could respond. They would use their advanced technology to fight like no human ship had ever fought before. Their first test came 3 weeks later. A Velthani patrol was hunting civilian refugees in the Kepler-186 system. 4 alien escort ships were chasing a damaged transport carrying 3,000 men, women, and children who had escaped from a destroyed colony. The Prometheus appeared behind the last enemy ship and fired a single, perfectly aimed plasma bolt. The Velthani vessel exploded before its crew knew they were under attack. Then the human ship vanished into quantum space. The remaining 3 alien ships spun around in confusion, their sensors scanning empty space for an enemy that was no longer there. The Prometheus materialized above them at a completely different angle, fired again, and disappeared. Another enemy ship died in purple fire. The surviving 2 Velthani vessels tried to run toward their destroyed comrade, hoping to find their attacker. Instead, the Prometheus appeared directly in their path and destroyed both ships with 2 quick shots. The entire battle lasted less than 4 minutes. "Civilian transport, this is the UES Prometheus," Hayrin transmitted to the refugee ship. "You're safe now. Jump to the nearest human system and tell everyone what you saw here. The fight has begun." Word spread quickly through human space and beyond. A single experimental ship was hunting Velthani patrols and winning every battle. Hope began to replace fear in human hearts across the galaxy. If one advanced vessel could kill the aliens, maybe humanity had a real chance to survive. But the Velthani Empire noticed the attacks too. Deep in the command center of his massive dreadnought, Hegemon Vexithara studied holographic reports of ship losses with growing anger. His pale blue skin had turned darker, which meant he was furious. No enemy had successfully challenged Velthani forces in over 800 years. "Explain to me," he said to his senior officers, "how a single primitive human ship has destroyed 18 of our vessels in the past month." War Commander Drakmor, a scarred veteran of dozens of planetary conquests, shifted nervously under his leader's black gaze. "The human vessel uses tactics we have never encountered before, my lord. It appears and disappears without any warning pattern we can detect. Impossible. Humans are barely evolved animals. Their technology is thousands of years behind ours. Perhaps, my lord, but this particular ship seems different from their other vessels. Our surviving crews report that it moves in ways that shouldn't be physically possible. And its weapons cut through our shields like they don't exist." Vexithara's completely black eyes blazed with rage. "You are telling me that one human ship is more dangerous than entire fleets of enemies we have conquered? I am telling you that we may have underestimated this species, my lord." The hegemon stood up from his command throne, his flowing robes rippling with built-in energy fields that showed his emotional state. "Assemble a hunter fleet, 8 heavy cruisers with your best crews. Find this human ship and destroy it. I want proof that these mortals can die like everything else. It will be done, my lord." But as War Commander Drakmor left to prepare his ships, he felt something he had not experienced in 3 centuries of warfare. Uncertainty. The Velthani Empire had always been the hunters, never the hunted. They had conquered every species they had encountered through superior technology and overwhelming force. Admiral Taejun watched the recording for the 6th time in 3 hours. Each time he saw the purple beams destroying the Karathi cities, his anger grew deeper. The conference room at Solar Defense Command was completely silent except for the sound of alien weapons turning a peaceful world into glass. When the video ended, President Kim spoke first. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she placed them on the table. "How much time do we have?" "Our intelligence says maybe 6 months," Taejun replied. "The Velthani Empire moves slowly. They like to completely destroy each sector before moving to the next one. Can we negotiate with them? Offer them something they want?" "No." The Admiral's voice was hard as steel. "I've read every report we have about them. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They see other species as animals to be enslaved or insects to be crushed." The room filled with worried voices as politicians and military officers argued about what to do. Defense Minister Park slammed his hand on the table hard enough to make the water glasses jump. "Quiet! We need solutions, not panic." "Actually," a soft voice said from the back of the room, "I might have a solution." Everyone turned to look at Chief Engineer Jiwoo. She was a small woman, maybe 35 years old, with tired eyes behind thick glasses. Most people forgot she was in the room until she spoke, but when Jiwoo talked, smart people listened. She had designed half the ships in the human fleet and invented technologies that shouldn't have been possible. "The Prometheus Project," she said, walking to the front of the room. She touched a control on the table, and a hologram appeared in the air above them. It showed a ship unlike anything else in human space. The hull was sleek and dark, with strange curves that seemed to bend light around them. "What exactly am I looking at?" President Kim asked. "Our secret weapon. We've been building it for 3 years in the hidden shipyards around Neptune. It uses technology we found in crash sites across the galaxy, not Velthani technology, something much older and more advanced." Admiral Tae-jun leaned forward in his chair. "I approved the budget for this project 2 years ago, but you never told me what it was really for. Because I wasn't sure it would actually work. The Prometheus uses quantum displacement drives instead of normal engines. It can teleport short distances during combat. The hull is made of adaptive armor that changes its properties based on whatever hits it. And the weapons." Jiwoo paused and took a deep breath. "The weapons are unlike anything we've ever built before." "How different?" the president asked. "Plasma cannons that change their energy frequency in real time to punch through any kind of shield. Missile systems that can rewrite their own targeting programs while they're flying toward the enemy. And something we call the Neural Command Interface." The room went completely quiet. Everyone in that room knew about the neural interface experiments. The military had banned them 3 years ago after the first test killed 9 volunteers and put 3 more in mental hospitals. "Jiwoo, Admiral," Tae-jun said slowly, "please tell me you're not talking about connecting human minds directly to ship computers." "That's exactly what I'm talking about. But we solved the feedback problem that killed those test pilots. Dr. Yoon-sik's team figured out how to create a buffer between the human brain and the ship's artificial intelligence. A human captain can literally become one with their ship." Dr. Yoon-sik stood up when his name was mentioned. He was a nervous man in his 50s with gray hair and hands that shook when he was excited. "The theory is completely sound. A human mind working directly with the ship's AI can make decisions and react to threats faster than any normal crew. Tactical thinking happens at the speed of light instead of the speed of human reflexes." "Has anyone actually tested this?" Defense Minister Park asked. "In computer simulations, yes. We've run over 3,000 different combat scenarios. The results are remarkable." "Show us," President Kim ordered. The hologram changed to show a battle simulation. A single human ship faced an enemy fleet of 15 vessels. For the first few minutes, it looked like certain death. The lone ship was completely outnumbered and should have been destroyed in seconds. Then something incredible happened. The ship began moving in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics. It flickered in and out of existence, appearing behind enemy ships before they could turn their weapons around. Its guns fired with perfect accuracy, hitting weak spots in enemy hulls that normal targeting systems couldn't even detect. One by one, the entire enemy fleet was destroyed. "How long did this battle simulation last?" Admiral Tae-jun asked. 3 minutes and 42 seconds, Jiwoo replied. No one spoke for almost a full minute. Finally, President Kim broke the silence. "What do you need to make this work?" "A captain brave enough to link their mind to an experimental ship that might kill them, and a crew willing to follow that captain into the most dangerous mission in human history." "I'll do it." Everyone turned to see Commander Hae-rin standing in the doorway. She was tall for a Korean woman, maybe 30 years old, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She had been listening to the conversation from outside the conference room. "Commander," Admiral Tae-jun said, "you don't understand what you're volunteering for. This isn't like piloting a normal ship." "I understand perfectly, Admiral. I've been following the Prometheus project for 18 months. I helped write some of the tactical programming for the ship's AI system." Dr. Yoon-sik looked worried. "The neural interface has never been tested in real combat conditions. We don't know what the mental stress will do to a human mind over time." Hae-rin smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "Doctor, we're about to fight aliens who think they're gods and have never lost a war in 3,000 years. Mental stress is the least of our problems. You'll need a good crew, Jiwoo said. I already know exactly who I want. Tactical Officer Dong Min from the cruiser Seoul. He can calculate attack patterns faster than most computers. Weapons Specialist Mi Young from the destroyer Busan. She knows every gun system in the human fleet and half the alien ones too. They're both experienced combat veterans and they're both completely crazy. Those sound like perfect qualifications for this mission, Admiral Taejun said with a grim smile. Over the next 4 months, the Prometheus was completed and secretly moved to Earth orbit. The ship was both beautiful and terrifying to look at. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and strange lights pulsed along its sides in patterns that hurt to watch for too long. Commander Hae-rin stood on the bridge of her new ship for the first time wearing the neural interface headset. It looked like a crown made of silver wires and glowing crystals. Dr. Yoon-sik watched her vital signs on monitors while Jiwoo checked the ship's systems from the engineering station. Beginning neural link initialization, Dr. Yoon-sik announced to the bridge crew. Hae-rin felt the ship's artificial intelligence touch her mind like a gentle hand. Suddenly she could see in all directions at once. She could feel every system in the ship, every circuit, every weapon. The Prometheus was no longer just a machine she commanded. It was part of her body. System status report, she said, but her voice sounded different now. More confident, older somehow. All systems are operating normally, reported Dongmin from the tactical station. He was a young man, maybe 26, with quick reflexes and eyes that never stopped moving. The quantum displacement drives are online and stable. Weapons ready for combat, added Mi Young from her control station. She was older than the others, maybe 35, with calm eyes and steady hands that came from 10 years of fighting space pirates. I've never seen plasma arrays like these before. They're absolutely beautiful. Take us out of orbit, Hae-rin ordered. The Prometheus moved like no ship in human space had ever moved before. Instead of the slow acceleration of normal engines, it simply appeared where it wanted to be. The quantum drives bent space itself, making distance meaningless. Where are we going, Captain? Dongmin asked. Hae-rin smiled, and for a moment her expression looked almost alien. The neural link was already changing her, making her more than human. The outer colonies, the Velthani are attacking human settlements out there. It's time they met their match. Back on Earth, Admiral Taejun watched the Prometheus disappear from his long-range sensors. He had just sent one experimental ship against an empire that had conquered half the known galaxy. It was either the most brilliant strategy in military history or the most insane. Sir, his assistant asked quietly, do you really think they can win? Taejun was quiet for a long moment, thinking about everything he had seen in 30 years of military service. The Velthani think they're gods because they've never faced a real challenge. They've been winning so long that they've forgotten what it's like to fight for their lives. But humans, we've been at war with each other for our entire history. We know how to kill things that seem impossible to kill. And if the Prometheus fails, then we'll die fighting with conventional weapons. But somehow, I don't think it will fail. Commander Hae-rin has something the aliens have never encountered before. What's that, Admiral? She's human, and humans have never learned how to give up. Far out in space, the Prometheus moved toward its first battle against the Hegemon Vexithara stood before the grand assembly of the Veltani Empire, his pale blue skin almost white with fury. Around him, thousands of his fellow rulers filled the enormous chamber that was carved from a single massive crystal. Their black eyes reflected the holographic displays showing burning ships and impossible defeats. Explain to me, his voice echoed across the assembly like breaking ice, how one primitive human ship has destroyed 63 of our vessels in 4 months. The assembled hegemons whispered anxiously among themselves. Never in their empire's 3,000-year history had they faced such a crisis. Human resistance was spreading like wildfire, inspiring rebellions on dozens of conquered worlds that had been peaceful slaves for centuries. My lord, spoke Hegemon Korthul from the 4th sector, his voice careful and measured. Perhaps we must accept that this human vessel represents a genuine threat to our rule. Intelligence reports suggest they have developed technology that we do not understand. Impossible! Vexthara's ceremonial robes flared with built-in energy fields that showed his emotional state. We are the chosen of the void. No mortal species can challenge our divine right to rule the galaxy. But even as he spoke those ancient words, Vexithara felt doubt growing in his heart like a cancer. The reports from surviving crews all told the same impossible story. A ship that appeared and disappeared without warning. Weapons that cut through Velthani shields like they were made of air. Human tactics that seemed to predict every move the Empire's forces would make. I will end this rebellion personally, he declared to the silent assembly. Send orders to every sector command. Assemble the Grand Fleet immediately. Every available warship, every battle station, every weapon of war we possess. We sail for the human homeworld and burn it to ashes. The Grand Assembly fell completely silent. The Grand Fleet had not been assembled since the conquest of the Zephyrian Empire 900 years ago. 300 warships, including the massive dreadnought God's Hammer, Vexthara's personal flagship that was larger than most cities. My lord, Korthul said very carefully, is such overwhelming force truly necessary against a single experimental ship? Vexthara's completely black eyes blazed with ancient rage. That single ship has made us appear weak before every species in the galaxy. Enslaved races are beginning to rebel against us. 7 colony worlds have declared independence in the past month alone. If we do not crush these humans completely and publicly, our entire empire will collapse. He was absolutely correct. Across Veltani space, the impossible was happening everywhere. Species that had been slaves for hundreds of years were rising up, inspired by humanity's refusal to surrender. The Karathi survivors had formed resistance cells that were attacking supply convoys. The aquatic delphins were sabotaging underwater mining operations. Even the peaceful Etherians were refusing to work in the labor camps. In the Sol system, Admiral Taejun watched the approaching enemy armada on his tactical displays. 300 alien ships led by a dreadnought the size of a small moon. It was the largest military force ever assembled in human space, probably the largest in galactic history. Admiral, his communications officer reported, the Prometheus is requesting permission to engage the fleet alone. Absolutely denied. I will not send one ship against that armada, no matter how advanced our technology has become. But even as he spoke those words, Admiral Taejun knew his conventional forces were completely hopeless against the Grand Fleet. The humans had 80 ships total, most of them outdated cruisers and destroyers that had been built decades ago. They would be slaughtered within hours. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Commander Hayreen put on her neural interface headset for what she knew would be the final time. The connection was immediate and perfect now, her human consciousness flowing seamlessly into the ship's quantum processors, like water mixing with water. Through the neural link, she could feel the approaching Veltani fleet like a storm of hatred and ancient arrogance. Captain, Dongmin said quietly from his tactical station, Admiral Taejun has specifically forbidden us from engaging the enemy fleet alone. I understand his order. Hayreen's voice was calm, but her crew could sense the fundamental change in her. After months of neural linking, she was no longer entirely human. Her thoughts operated at computer speeds, processing tactical information faster than any organic mind should be able to function. Mi Young, she continued, charge all weapon systems to maximum power, route every available bit of energy to the plasma arrays. Aye, Captain, but if we do that, we'll completely burn out every power conduit in the ship after one full discharge. I know that. Dr. Yunsik looked up from his medical scanners, his face pale with worry. Captain, your neural patterns are showing massive stress indicators. The interface was never designed for this kind of sustained use. If you maintain the link much longer, your human brain will die, Hayreen finished for him, or transform into something that is no longer human at all. I understand the risks completely. She turned to look at her crew members, and for a moment, her eyes seemed to glow with inner light that was not entirely natural. This is what we were created for. Not just this ship, but all of us together. Humanity has always excelled at one thing above every other species in the galaxy. What's that, Captain? Dongmin asked. We are very good at killing things that call themselves gods. The Prometheus left Earth orbit without authorization, quantum jumping directly into the path of the massive Grand Fleet. The Velthani Armada stretched across millions of kilometers, their ships arranged in geometric patterns that had remained unchanged for 1,000 years of easy victories. At the center of the formation, the God's Hammer dominated space like a floating mountain made of dark metal and malevolent energy. Its hull was covered with religious symbols that glowed with power drawn from unknown sources. Weapon batteries the size of city blocks tracked the tiny human ship with contempt. Single human vessel detected on approach vector, reported the tactical officer on Vexithara's bridge. Shall we destroy it immediately, my lord? No, the hegemon said, settling into his ancient command throne. I want to speak with these mortals before they die. Let them witness the true power of their gods. The communication beam opened, and Commander Hayren's image appeared on the main display screen. But something was wrong with the transmission. Her human form seemed to flicker between solid matter and pure energy, as if she existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. I am Hegemon Vexithara, chosen of the Void, master of 10,000 worlds, he announced with ceremonial formality. You will surrender immediately and prepare to witness your species' final destruction. Hayren smiled, and the expression was both beautiful and terrifying to see. I am Commander Hayren of the UES Prometheus, and I have come here to teach you the difference between gods and mortals. What difference could there possibly be? Mortals can become something greater than what they were born to be. Gods can only fall from the heights of their own arrogance. The battle began with Vexithara's roar of outrage. The entire Grand Fleet opened fire at once, turning the space around the Prometheus into a web of purple energy beams and plasma torpedoes. Any conventional ship would have been vaporized instantly by such overwhelming firepower. But the Prometheus was no longer a conventional ship. Through the neural interface, Hayren had become one with its quantum consciousness. She moved through the barrage like liquid lightning, appearing and disappearing faster than enemy sensors could track or target. This is impossible, breathed Vexithara's tactical officer. No ship in the galaxy can move like that. The Prometheus struck back with surgical precision that seemed almost artistic. Its plasma arrays, supercharged far beyond safe limits, punched through Velthani shields like they were made of empty space. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant fireballs as the human vessel danced through their perfect formations, like a force of nature. But the tremendous effort was consuming Hayren's humanity with each passing moment. On the bridge, her crew watched in horror as her physical body began to phase in and out of existence, becoming more energy than solid matter. Captain, Dr. Yunsik called out desperately, you're losing physical cohesion. The neural link is rewriting your molecular structure at the quantum level. I know what's happening to me, she replied, but her voice now came from the ship's speakers instead of her human throat. It's the only way to end this war permanently. The battle raged for 4 hours. The Prometheus destroyed ship after ship, moving through the Grand Fleet like an avenging angel of death. But there were still too many enemies, and the human vessel was beginning to fail. Its weapons were overheating dangerously, its quantum drives were becoming unstable, and its captain was transforming into something beyond human understanding. All ships, converge on the human vessel from every direction, Vexithara commanded in desperation. I don't care if you have to ram it. Destroy that abomination before it kills us all. The remaining Velthani ships, still over 100 strong, closed in from all sides. The Prometheus was trapped in the center of a shrinking sphere of enemy fire. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. Commander Hayren, now more ship than human, made her final decision as both captain and weapon.